This is episode 53 of the 99 Forever podcast. I'm Eric Friesen, and joining me on the show tonight are the co-hosts of the Oil on Ice podcast, Gabriel Candido and Diego Pontes. Welcome back to the show, guys.
It's always a pleasure to be here with you, Eric. It's always a pleasure, of course, to be with you, Diego, with my partner here in Brazil to talk about the Oilers. And you know, it's my third time here, as I was saying. And Diego knows how hard it is to find someone to talk about the ice hockey in here, especially about the Oilers. So it's always a pleasure to be here.
Yeah. It's like Gabriel said, it's always a pleasure. So hello, guys. I'm really glad to be back again to talk about Oilers with you. So it's going to be a very interesting episode today.
Definitely. I mean, I love talking hockey with you guys as well. And it's the first time you've been back on the podcast since we did the season predictions episode last October. I can't remember all the predictions we made, except for the one that will always stand out is when Diego predicted 192 points for Connor McDavid. I'm still hoping that will come true in the next couple of years. But we'll have to go back and look at how we did on those predictions one of these days. And tonight we're going to discuss the Oilers off-season signings so far. But first, I just want to ask you both about the Oilers' run to the Western Conference Final this past spring. I believe you both became Oilers fans after they made it to the 2006 Stanley Cup Final. So what was it like to experience your first long playoff run as an Oilers fan? And what was your favorite moment of the 2022 playoffs? Gabriel, why don't you start us off?
It was such an amazing feeling. It was way better than I could imagine. And, you know, I didn't follow the Oilers in the 2006 run, and fortunately or unfortunately, I think. And the two past playoffs with the Blackhawks and the Jets, it was really, really painful. So it was really good to finally see how the Oilers can be the Oilers that we already know in the playoffs. So it was such an amazing feeling. We're looking forward to experience that again and again and again.
And what was your favorite moment from that run?
Well, everyone will answer the McDavid overtime goal against the Calgary Flames that closes out the series in Game 5, and it can't be another one. I just remember it was late in the night here. It was so great to see the goal from Connor McDavid finishing the Calgary Flames after that Game 1. But I have to say that apart from that, I really enjoyed the Game 7 in the best way possible against the LA Kings, because in the whole game I was in the maximum possible way calm, because the Oilers played so well. And of course, the other game is against the Calgary. After that first one, that was really a complicated one. Each one had a special moment for me.
Absolutely. I mean, when you think about it, that win over the Flames in the Saddle Dome is one that Oilers fans are going to remember forever, especially the McDavid goal at the end to seal the deal. And like you said, that game against the Kings, Game 7 at Rogers Place, I think that was maybe my most tense moment of the entire playoff run, because it was the first chance to get over the hump and win a playoff series for the first time in 5 years. Diego, how about yourself? What was the overall experience like? And what was your favorite moment from the 2022 playoffs?
Oh, Eric, I enjoyed a lot. It's like Gabriel said, that goal was remarkable. It really felt different for all Oilers fans. You know, when we had the chance to close out this series against the Flames, it was an amazing experience. But I really enjoyed this run, and it was not expected, actually. It wasn't expected, because I didn't expect the Oilers to go this far. Actually, they had a great team. They have actually a great team. But to be fair with you guys, I wasn't expecting us to reach the Western Conference Finals. It was a good surprise, and I really enjoyed the run. But I gotta say, you know, I got really nervous. I was very anxious. I couldn't even watch the overtime on Game 5 against the Flames, because it was nail biting. I couldn't get quiet. So I was just checking the messages on WhatsApp here. There is an Oilers group, and then I said, okay, I'm just gonna open when the game is over. And for my good surprise, I saw some people making comments like, "It's over," it's over. So Connor McDavid did the impossible, the overtime goal. It was really cool, so I could relax at that moment, and I knew that against the Avs there would be, you know, lots of effort to win against them because they're such a powerhouse. And I was really calm about that because I wasn't expecting them to win. But if they did, that would be amazing. I'm always cheering for the Oilers, but I have to be realistic. I don't know if we could win against the Avs, especially having Leon Draisaitl playing at one leg. Nurse was injured as well, and lots of other things happened. Even to JP, he got sick and he couldn't play at his best. But I really enjoyed the run, and the most remarkable moment, it was the game 7, when Cody Ceci scored the first goal. I got just a lot of confidence because I was not calm about that series. I knew that the Oilers were nervous and they could lose the series against the Kings, and that would be such a shame for all of us. But when Cody Ceci scored that first goal, I really enjoyed that moment. And for me, it's one of the most remarkable moments besides the overtime goal from Connor McDavid, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, that goal by Ceci, probably one of the biggest goals of his career. I'd have to go back and look at his time with the Senators and other teams that he played for. But, I mean, a series clinching goal, I can't think that he's scored a bigger one in the NHL.
That's right.
And just that, it seemed like once they got that goal, I believe it was in the second period, I was still tense, but you started to feel a little better about their chances that they scored first. I didn't want them to fall behind in that game. Exactly. And ultimately, the Oilers were able to close it out with McDavid getting also the final goal of that series. It was just the insurance marker, but still to eventually knock off the Kings. And just overall, I think that's a playoff run that we won't forget anytime soon. So I just have to say, like, that was probably the most, well, I shouldn't say probably, definitely the most exciting 5 weeks of Oilers hockey that we've seen in the last 16 years. And hopefully you hope it's just the first of many deep playoff runs for the Oilers core group.
Absolutely.
No, yeah, for sure. I have to say that you said about the Cody Ceci goal. I have to say the Evan Bouchard goal in the game 2 versus the Flames. It was a really tense game after that 9-6 loss in Calgary. If the Oilers fall behind 2-0 in the series, I didn't know if they could come back. And he tied the game in the third period, and then Hyman scored the short-handed goal, and then the Oilers won the game 2 and.
That was such a confidence-building game for them. Anymore.
Yeah, for sure. If Bouchard didn't score that goal or Hyman didn't score this one, I don't know how the series could end up. But it was a good moment as well.
When you think about it, they lost that one game, like you mentioned, 9-6, and then they're down 3-1 in game 2.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking, if they go back to Edmonton down by 2, it's going to be a really tough hill to climb to get back in this series. Yeah. So you could argue that win at the Saddledome to even the series going back to Edmonton was as important as any other game in that series.
Absolutely. I agree. Yeah, and I've got to say that their offense, the Oilers' offense was amazing. They were clicking. We lost the first game, actually, but it was because of our defense, and we didn't have a proper goaltending. But can you imagine? We scored 6 goals on the first game. It's a lot, and after that game, it seemed like the Oilers' offense got even better, during this series. With all due respect to Jacob Markstrom, actually, which is a good goalie. But I think it's more about merit on the Oilers side because their offense was great than saying that Markstrom was playing bad. No, I
I think it's a
honestly
combination of the
don't
two.
agree.
Like
It's a combination.
The Oilers seem to have his number, but he wasn't at his best. But I will say the Oilers' offense was just so overpowering in that series, and for them to have that sort of breakout against their biggest rival, I mean, they couldn't have picked a better team to do it against.
That's true. No,
Yeah,
it was a remarkable moment. That series, I mean. Go ahead, Gabriel. I'm sorry.
No problem at all. Just wanna say that you talk about Markstrom. He had in the game 4, I think, against the Flames. That in the first minute of the game in Edmonton, Nuge scored on his
Yeah,
flop.
he just kind of flubbed it behind the net where he was trying to pass it out, and it was great to get off to that start. And of course, Nuge finished it with an even bigger goal.
Yeah.
Which is probably the biggest goal of his NHL career as well.
For sure.
Yeah, and then the team was I don't know 3-0 at the first period.
Yeah,
and I thought
they
that's
let
it,
that
and then
3-0 lead evaporate and
evaporated the most amazingly weirdly way possible with that goal that Smith got. But
yeah, we try to forget about that one.
Yeah, for sure. But everything end up all right in the end. The Nuge scored again.
And you have to feel so good for Nuge too, because you think about how many losing seasons he's been through. Yeah. For him to be the one to score that goal, it was like the perfect ending to that game for him to have that moment. I think he's already such a fan favorite in oil country, but that was something that he deserved after everything he's been through.
Absolutely. And I must add up, Eric and Gabriel, that I don't know, guys, if you noticed it, but when the Oilers clinched the series against the Flames and they went to the Western Conference Finals, you could see on his face how emotional he was.
Yeah.
You know? So you could feel like all the pain that he had been through his whole career in Edmonton so far, you could see that disappear, in a blink of an eye, because his eyes were very emotional, like saying, I made it, so I made it this far with this group. And it's amazing. It feels amazing for us who really love Nuge, and we hope to see him winning here in Edmonton. And that day was really cool. So it brought tears to my eyes as well.
I'm pretty sure you weren't the only one in oil country to say that, Diego.
Absolutely. But it was such a special moment, and I'm so glad for Nuge. I hope he has a great season this year as well, and we go even further, That's what we expect, actually.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
100%. I mean, it's a playoff run we won't forget, and hope, like I said, hopefully there's going to be a lot more springs like that in the next decade.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Before we recap the Oilers off season, I'd like to take some time now to remember Ben Stelter, who sadly passed away on August 9th after a courageous battle with brain cancer at the age of 6. I was just heartbroken when I saw the tweet from Ben's dad, Mike, that he had passed away. So I just want to extend my condolences to the entire Stelter family. Ben's story touched everyone in oil country and the entire hockey world. He was such a special little guy, and his name will forever be attached to that playoff run. So I just want to ask you both, what will you remember most about Ben? Diego, you can go first.
Ben Stelter was really such an angel, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
He was a warrior, and he fought the good fight. Actually, his family did what they could to make him live the best days of his life before he leaves us. And it got me really heartbroken. I got really sad. I even cried here when I heard of his passing, and it was really, really sad. It was a sad day,
Mm-hmm.
When we heard of Joey Moss, I think his legacy. Maybe I'm. This is an overstatement, maybe, but his legacy will be as strong as Joey Moss. I think for oil country. Maybe I'm exaggerating a little, but I really think he changed, the city. He changed the Oilers players, and my greatest memory about him it's when he was saying after every win he was recording a video saying "Play La Bamba, baby," like how can you not love that video? How can you not love his pureness, his kind heart, appreciating a team that he loved while he was here. I just have great memories about him and his family. I send my deepest condolences to them, and I hope they have better days ahead of them because they really deserve. They were a very supportive family, according to the tweets we have seen on Twitter and their posts. So that is my greatest memory. But he was very important to oil country, and I truly hope, Eric, Gabriel, that maybe someday the Oilers consider raising a statue or maybe making some honor, to him, because he left a huge legacy in Edmonton, and I would love to see that the Oilers paying some tribute to him, because I think he was really remarkable to this season and to the team as a whole.
Yeah, for sure. I think when we remember that playoff run years and years from here, we will always remember about Ben Stelter. For sure, we'll never forget his presence in the Rogers place or in the social media and supporting the Oilers like a really, really huge fan. I really think he will be remembered as well as Joey Moss is. And it was so joyful to see him like enjoying the moment with the players and all the organization being with him and promoting him, and the whole city stopped. People from here talked with me that they know they have the Artist Brazil profile. They didn't know anything about hockey, but they talked to me about that little baby that appears that says "Play La Bamba, baby." So even if you don't watch hockey, you can't be amazed, be contagious by the Ben Stelter's happiness and the way of living. I really think that the family can find the strength to keep going and remember the good moments, and always know that he enjoyed the most of all when he was with us.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't say it better. Ben loved the Oilers, and he was such an important part of that playoff run for the players, the fans, the city. And I'll never forget the night when Ben skated out onto the ice in full uniform and stood next to his hero, Connor McDavid, on the blue line for the national anthem. And even though his time here on Earth was short, I'm so happy that he had the chance to live out a bunch of his dreams in the final months of his life. I already, mentioned standing next to McDavid before a game, but he also got to come to an Oilers practice and score a goal on Mikko Koskinen. He took a team picture in the locker room with all the players. Upper Deck presented him with his very own hockey card. Connor and Leon both came to visit Ben at his house. He had the chance to go to California for an Oilers road playoff game and against the Kings and see the Stanley Cup and go to Disneyland with his family. And I'm sure a bunch more things that we didn't even see or that we don't know about. But despite everything he was going through, Ben was always smiling whenever they showed him on TV at Rogers Place. And, that giggle is like, I think everyone will always remember that. He was just such a happy kid, despite going through something as terrible as cancer, and he'll be missed at Rogers Place. The Oilers actually went on a 10-game home winning streak at one point with Ben in attendance. So,
yeah,
he seemed to inspire everyone and get the fans into it as much as the players. He really was the Oilers' number one fan, their good luck charm and inspiration last season. So I just want to say rest in peace, Ben. You won't be forgotten. And once an Oiler, always an Oiler.
Yeah. Always an Oiler. Yeah,
absolutely. He really make it worth the time here. And you started talking. It was good moment after a good moment. There was like a lot. I can't forget the interview he did beside Zach Hyman, and it was so great to see him. He just asked what's your favorite player, and he asked, and his answer at spot it was Connor McDavid, and Hyman just laughed and he couldn't compete about McDavid. It was such amazing moments after amazing moments.
And see, that's what I'm saying. He did all these things, so many cool things that we can't even remember all of them off the top of our head, but when you start to talk about them, it just comes back to you. So I'm glad that he had the chance to do all of that, and his family is. I can only imagine still devastated to have lost him, but I'm thankful that they'll always have these pictures and videos that they can look back on years from now and just remember all the experiences he got to have in 2022.
Yeah, and props to our captain who wore an Oilers uniform at his funeral, with the letter B on the chest. That was such a symbolic but important moment to show how much Connor loved him, loved that kid. So this should also be one example to all of us, and I think Connor represented every single Oilers fan, who loved the Oilers and also loved Ben Stelter. That was such a symbolic moment. I would like to mention that.
Yeah. I think it showed a lot of character for Connor and the bond that he formed with Ben, that Connor flew in for that because he wasn't in Edmonton at the time. He spends his summers back in Toronto. So he flew in for that event for Ben's celebration of life at Rogers Place, and I'm sure the family really appreciated that too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
So rest in peace, Ben, wherever you are. You will never be forgotten, even from Brazil.
Yeah, you can be sure all over the world, not just all the hockey fans will never forget your time here.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go back to July 12th now and discuss the Oilers' first big move of the offseason. So just hours before he was set to hit free agency, Evander Kane broke the news on Twitter that he had signed a 4-year extension with the Oilers worth $20.5 million, including a limited no-movement clause. Were you guys surprised that the Oilers were able to keep Kane, and what did you think of the deal overall? Diego, why don't you start us off?
Okay, so I loved the deal, and I loved that Evander Kane broke the news. That's amazing. Normally, we expect that from the biggest insiders like Kevin Weeks, Elliot Friedman, and others. But when he broke his own news, like saying that he got an extension with us, I got really surprised, and I got really amazed by the price that the Oilers signed him. I think it was a fair deal, a really good one. And props to Ken Holland and Brad Holland. Maybe he had some word on it. We don't know, but I really loved the deal. And I think he's a huge addition to this Oilers team because he was an excellent player during the playoffs, and he also helped us to take Nazem Kadri for a few games. So I will always be thankful for Evander Kane for that.
Yeah.
It's just a joke, of course, but I really loved the deal, and I think he's going to be very useful. I disagree with some Oilers fans when they say that maybe he's going to regress in 2-3 years. That's a maybe, but once you know how to play with Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, I think the chances of having a high production every single season are very likely to happen. So I'm very glad. I think he's a huge addition for this team, and to have him for that price, I think it was about 4 or 5 million.
Yeah,
Four or five million
five
dollars.
5.125 million. So
Okay,
just a shade over 5.1.
yeah, for me it's a fair deal. He was being rumored to get about 7 million. In the market, but it didn't happen, or maybe it was his choice, or maybe he couldn't find a better deal, so he stayed with us. But I would rather believe that he decided to stick around and win a championship here because the chances are very likely, better than other teams, I should say. No disrespect to other teams, and I don't want to be biased, but I truly think that the Oilers are in a position to win now, and he saw that, and it was one of the reasons why he decided to extend with the Oilers.
And Gabriel, how about you? Any concern signing a 31-year-old power forward for 4 years?
No, when he broke the news by himself, I really had to double check. It was because the time and the price, it was 5.125 million. It was really less than we expected. But talking about his own nice performance, only when the Edmonton Oilers signed him, it was kind of his last chance in the NHL. He was almost out of the league. It was with all the problems that he faced in the San Jose Sharks and all the league, but he really capitalized a lot in the chance that the Oilers gave, and I think he can be really, really helpful to the team in the next seasons. I think in the next 4 years. I don't know if he will stop playing as well as he is. It's hard to not play well with Connor McDavid beside you, but his playoff run was such an amazing one with 13 goals in 15 games. He was really, really amazing to watch in the first line, and really, really expect him to keep going like that, keep playing great, keeping behaving on ice and off ice, and the best way possible, and to see him with the Oilers scoring a lot of goals and having a lot of good playoff runs as well.
For sure. In my opinion, bringing back Kane was a significant signing for the Oilers. I mean, he was the third leading scorer on the team in the second half of the season, behind only McDavid and Draisaitl. He had 22 goals and 39 points in 43 games, while producing almost entirely at even strength. And like you said, Gabriel, he had an even more impressive 13 goals and 17 points in 15 playoff games, also becoming the first Oiler to lead the league in playoff goals since Fernando Pisani in 2006. And it looked like Kane might have priced himself out of Edmonton following his outstanding playoff performance, but I guess he just ultimately decided that he wanted to stay in Edmonton and play on a line with the best player in the world. And sort of like you said as well, Diego, give him his best chance to win a Stanley Cup. And I think getting him signed to a $5.1 million cap hit will prove to be a value contract for the Oilers, especially when you look at what some other free agents were making this summer. How often does a player coming off a 42 goal pace sign for just over $5 million? That you're looking at a $7-8 million player typically in that situation. So I think Ken Holland deserves some credit for letting Kane test the market and then signing him to a team-friendly deal.
Yeah, absolutely. Ken Holland likes to preach patience, right? And sometimes we get kind of upset with these sort of statements because we want actions to happen. We want something to happen, and we're not used. I can speak for myself. I'm not used to wait, to preach this patience. And props to him. He got a fair price for Evander Kane when he could have asked for more. So I have to recognize that Ken Holland did a great job on this one.
Right.
Oh yeah, like I always criticize Ken Holland when I can, like in the Twitter and those things that I can, but I have to compliment when he deserved it, and not to only with Evander Kane, his off-season job this year, it was really, really great. Really props to them. Props to Ken Holland and all the other organization. I really think they made all the best possible signings so far, and Ken Holland really did a great job with Evander Kane, mostly with the letting him test the market and eventually coming back with a great deal for the Oilers.
Definitely. So I want to ask you both, how many goals do you think Kane will score this coming season? Gabriel, what do you think?
Let me think. I have here that, and he had in the last season, he had 22 goals in 43 games, I think. With
and
the
he
Oilers.
was on pace for 42 in 82 games.
42. I don't know if he keep going, if he keep playing with Draisaitl, with Connor McDavid in the first line, and even with Draisaitl sometimes. Why not? I don't know. I want to be optimistic and say something like 50, but I don't know. Between 40 and 50.
50 would be unbelievable.
40. Yeah, 50 would be unbelievable. That's why I said. But let me think. I can say, I don't know, to be optimistic, he will be 41.
Well, I'll just say this. The only team in NHL history to have 3 50-goal scorers on the same team was the Oilers. They did it twice in the 80s, in 1983-84 and in 1985-86 with Wayne Gretzky, Jari Kurri, and Glenn Anderson. I think that Draisaitl and McDavid are both going to score 50 goals this year, which would make them the first teammates since the late 90s to do it, when Mario Lemieux and Jaromir Jagr both scored 50 goals in a season. But if Evander Kane also did, and we're talking about having 3 50-goal scorers on the team again 30 plus years later, that would just be incredible.
No, yeah, he's not in the same as Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, but I really think that he can have an excellent season. It's hard. I know it's hard. It's very, very hard. But I want to believe. If I can dream before the season starts, I want to give my one of my best shots.
So I'm going to call it now, Eric and Gabriel. So it's going to be 51 goals for the game. 51 goals.
All
you
right.
can bet on that because he's going to play with the 2 best centers in the world. No disrespect to Austin Matthews, which is a great player, an excellent player, actually. But Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid, they're on a mission. They're going to be really motivated to win the Stanley Cup. They got so close, they could experience such a long playoff run, and they're going to be there in their best, to try to bring this Stanley Cup back to Edmonton. So I'm going to say that they're going to be chased a lot, and this is going to result in open spaces to other players score like Evander Kane and even Zach Hyman. So I'm predicting a better scoring season to Zach Hyman, about 35 goals. But I truly believe that Evander Kane, this is a bold prediction, will score over 50. It's going to be 51 goals. This is my prediction. And mostly because he's going to have a lot of power play time, and he's such a huge front net presence. So I truly believe that he's going to have more time than Puljujarvi on power play. And for this reason, he's going to score plenty of goals. So 51 is doable. It's not a reach, so I truly believe on that. 51 goals.
Yeah, well, and sorry, you can go.
No, go ahead, Gabriel.
I was just going to say that now we have Evander Kane from the beginning of the season. Now that he knows the city, I think he is pretty good with the other Oilers players, and we have Jay Woodcraft with him from the beginning, that we already know he can prepare really great in the off-season, and I really think he can be better with more stable team, with more stable coach and stable situation after that really great playoff run.
And, you know, I'm an optimist, so I really hope that you're right, Diego, on that. And I'm going to go a little more conservatively. I think that he'll score 40 goals, which would still be a career high for him. You know, Kane can score off the rush. He can snipe from the top of the circles, and he can bury a rebound in the crease. So he can score in a variety of ways. And I do think playing with McDavid at the height of his powers will definitely give him the chance to score 40-plus goals. I expect McDavid is going to get close to 100 assists this season as well. So if Kane is one of his main line mates, he's likely to be the recipient on a lot of those passes. And aside from his goal-scoring ability, Kane also brings an intimidation factor. You know, he never hesitates to lay out an opponent with a hard hit or drop the gloves if he's provoked. So bringing him back was extremely important for the Oilers, I would say.
Yeah, for sure. And playing with Connor McDavid, he's the best player in the world. And he's as target as Connor McDavid is on ice. It's good to have an Evander Kane with his backing on ice.
Definitely. And just hours after signing Kane, the Oilers inked UFA goalie Jack Campbell to a 5-year contract worth $25 million. And ESPN's Kevin Weeks broke the news the night before the free agent period started that Campbell would be coming to Edmonton. Was Campbell the goalie you were hoping the Oilers would sign this summer? And do you have any concerns about his limited experience as a starting goalie in the NHL? Diego, why don't you go first?
All right. So Jack Campbell was a good signing. So I don't know much about him because I didn't follow his season with Toronto. But I could say that I feel much better than regarding last season, our goaltending, you know, with Mikko Koskinen and Mike Smith, which I should say they had some great games, but they weren't solid, you know, most of the time in goals. So having a younger goalie and someone who played with a strong team like the Leafs, and the Leafs didn't want you. Why wouldn't he work with Edmonton? Because we have some former Leafs players who are having much better seasons with us, you know, instead of the Leafs. So I should say that I feel really happy about the signing. I think he has a lot of things to prove, but he wasn't my first option. I was expecting for some other goalies, you know, like Marc-Andre Fleury maybe, but I wasn't expecting him to come to Canada. But he would be a great addition, you know, or maybe Darcy Quimper could be a good goalie for us as well. But I think Jack Campbell has a lot of things to prove. You know, he proved he had great games. He could steal a few games with the Leafs. So he was in a conversation for the Vezina in the beginning of the season. Why couldn't he replicate that? You know, that's my question. So I'm hopeful about our goaltending, and we should add Stuart Skinner as well. He might become a great goalie, not only a backup goalie, but maybe a starter. We never know. We can only hope for now. But I'm happy about Jack Campbell, and I truly hope he has a great season ahead of him. So he seems to be a very good guy, and he's going to get along well with this core, this group that the Oilers have. So I'm glad about the signing.
For sure. And Gabriel, was Campbell who you wanted the Oilers to sign?
Well, I think he was the best possible option that the Oilers had at the moment, and I'm really happy that Campbell is coming to Edmonton. It's good to have a first goalie, like a clear name from the Oilers. I don't know, we don't have that since Cam Talbot. I think our first goalie that we know. He did the first one just when they begin with Mike Smith and Mikko Koskinen. One play like some games and they changed it. But Jack Campbell, he has some great numbers. I think he had in the last season 31 wins. I think in 46 games played, and he had some injuries as well. But I think he could recover and he could keep performing in the same way as he used to in a high level. And I'm really happy to Jack Campbell. I think he can be as good as Zach Hyman, for example, who is a former Maple Leaf who come here and started to making the best numbers of his career. Even Tyson Barrie, when he came from the Maple Leafs, he played so great. He had his best numbers in a long way here in Edmonton. But and I think he has some old people that he already know. And of course, playing with the Oilers, a team that can go even further of the Western Conference Final we did last year, it's such an amazing opportunity. And we always have Stuart Skinner as a backup goalie who can evolve, as Diego said, from a really first option of goalie. And as I said before, with Jay Woodcroft, which is really, really good about evolving players and make them play even better that they already know. I think the Jack Campbell is a good signing from the Oilers. Another good signing for Ken Holland in this offseason.
Definitely. And, Campbell might not be an obvious Vezina caliber goaltender, but he's proven that he can be a solid number one guy and have stretches of elite play. Since 2018-19, Campbell has a 2.51 goals against average and a .916 save percentage, which ranked 10th and 11th in the league, respectively, among goalies with at least 50 games played over that time. And that's the type of consistent goaltending the Oilers need from him. Because when they had Mike Smith and Mikko Koskinen in between the pipes, they could either deliver a spectacular performance or a dismal one on any given night. So maybe Campbell won't make as many incredible diving saves as we've seen from Smith, but he probably will be a more reliable goaltender overall. And he's also a full decade younger than Mike Smith, and he doesn't have as many hard miles on the body after spending most of his career as a backup goalie. And while some Oilers fans might be concerned that Campbell has only played in 135 career NHL games at age 30, let's keep in mind that he has more experience than Cam Talbot did when the Oilers traded for him back in 2015. And also, Campbell won't be expected to play 60-plus games this season. The Oilers have been developing Stuart Skinner for the past 5 years. This is a guy they traded up to draft, have watched him develop through the system and make his way up to the NHL. And given what Skinner showed last season, Campbell doesn't need to take on a massive workload. Ideally, I think the Oilers are looking for Campbell to play somewhere around 50 games and Skinner to handle the other 30 to 32 starts. But overall, I would say this goalie tandem is a clear upgrade from what they had last season.
Yes, it is absolutely. I feel very confident about our goaltending this season. I think they're going to surprise a lot of people, and I truly expect great games from Campbell. He's excited to join a new club. He sees the potential this Oilers roster has. So I'm very confident, and I think Stuart Skinner will have a better chance to play. So he's gonna take this challenge and do his best. So and I'm very confident.
For sure. And I've also heard Jack Campbell talk about how Jonathan Quick was a mentor for him when he was with the Kings.
Oh,
and
my gosh.
Let's hope that some of that has rubbed off on Campbell, and he can also pass that knowledge down to Stuart Skinner, who those two will be working together for the next, hopefully, 5 years and maybe longer. So there's a potential for this kind of mentorship to go on, similar to what we maybe saw from Duncan Keith and Evan Bouchard last year, with an older player mentoring a younger player and helping him find his way in the league.
Yeah.
No, yeah, for sure, and Jack Campbell knows that in the Oilers he will receive an opportunity that in the Leafs he might never get it. The Edmonton Oilers really make make a really good bet on him, or putting him on the first option as a goalie, mentoring Stuart Skinner, can even involve and with a really great team. And it's really reliability is the right word, that we really changed from Smith and Costner that could have an excellent, memorable night or a really bad one. I think this year we are really better than last year in the goalie position.
Definitely. All right, so shortly after the Oilers solidified their goaltending, Holland re-signed Brett Kulak to a 4-year deal worth $11 million. And with Duncan Keith retiring in July, they would have had a difficult hole to fill if Kulak didn't return. So how confident are you in Kulak as the Oilers' second pairing left shot defenseman this season? Gabriel, go ahead.
No, the Brett Kulak one was the signing that I was really expecting the Oilers could get. And shout out to Ken Holland again. He really made it work. It was from 4 years, I think, 2.75 million. It was a good value. And he had his best year in numbers as well, with the beginning in Montreal and in Edmonton. And really, without Keith and if Brett Kulak left the team, we would have a really hole to fill in the second line, in the second defensive line, to play alongside Bouchard, or even in the first. Who knows? No, it's hard to. If I don't know if Darnell Nurse had any problem like he had in this past season, but it's good. Brett Kulak, it will be like such an important part of the team. He will be such a good player to play in the defense, in the really complicated defense that the Oilers had in the last year. And it's really good. It's really good to see Brett Kulak coming back to Edmonton, and with a long-term deal with 4 years right now.
And Diego, how do you feel about Kulak?
For me, it's the best signing of the off-season.
Yeah.
I've got to say, for the price that he signed with the Oilers and the potential he has to play, like Gabriel said, on top four, he could be a very reliable defenseman, on top four. And I think he's totally capable of taking this position. So for me, there's no need to acquire not top four defenseman like some people say that it's needed. Actually, I truly think Broberg will have a huge step in his development this year, and Brett Kulak, I'm sorry, it's very reliable on top four. So I'm very excited for that, especially for the price that he signed with us. So he proved last year he could be very reliable. He improved Tyson Barrie's numbers, on defense. Tyson Barrie played better, because of him. And this is the kind of the defenseman the Oilers need. A shutdown defenseman and someone who could pass or transmit some sort of confidence to the players who play alongside him. So I'm very confident. I really loved this signing. More than the other signs like Evander Kane was great, Jack Campbell was really good, but Brett Kulak was a must, and in my opinion, it was such a great deal, and I hope it pays off. I hope he plays better than the value he signed. So we can only hope, and I'm very hopeful about his play this upcoming season. So I'm very excited about that. I think, in my humble opinion, of course, maybe some other Oilers fans will not like what I'm gonna say, but he's our top four defenseman for this season, and I believe in him.
Oh, we'll definitely. I don't think there's any doubt that he'll be in the top four. I mean, Kulak really thrived after the trade to Edmonton last season, and he impressed me with his excellent skating and puck-moving abilities, as well as his underrated physical play. He might not be a vicious defenseman, but if someone gets under his skin, he's not going to back down either. And he put up 8 points in 18 games with the Oilers, which translates to a 36-point pace over a full season. But I'm not as worried about his offensive totals. He's a defense-first defenseman who excels at neutralizing zone entries and stopping cycles. Yeah. He hasn't played on the second pairing consistently throughout his career, but when asked to take on more minutes down the stretch and into the playoffs, he performed well. So getting him signed to a $2.75 million cap hit looks like a bargain for a top four defenseman, and maybe he took a bit of a hometown discount. Kulak has spoken about how special it was to play for his childhood team last season, not just for him, but for his entire family. And he's also getting the chance to have an important role on a Stanley Cup contender. So I think those are probably all factors in his decision to sign with the Oilers. And also, he's 28 years old, so it's not like they're giving this contract to a 34-year-old defenseman. He's right in the prime of his career right now, and he's a player who I expect to help them out significantly over the next several years.
Yeah, I really think that he can be even better in this season than he was in the last one. And I don't know, a lot of people say that the Oilers' defense aren't so great. I admit it's not, of course, the best defense in the league. But I don't know, a first pairing with Darnell Nurse and Cody Ceci, for example, and second one with Kulak and Bouchard, it isn't so bad. And
it's probably really middle of the pack, right?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the defense.
It might not be the best, but it's...
Yeah, of course.
If you look at the six defensemen overall, it's an average group at least. It's not a bad group of defensemen by any means. And if the team defense is strong enough and they get good goaltending, the Oilers have such a strong offense that they're going to outscore a lot of their problems anyway.
Yeah, it's hard to compare with the offense with McDavid, Draisaitl, and Evander Kane and Zach Hyman, but I think we are better than last year again, not just in the goalie position, but in the defense as well. I really think Brett Kulak can perform in a better way than Duncan Keith was in the past season.
For sure.
I remember that one of the reasons why he signed in Edmonton was because of the chances of playing on top four. You know, probably he heard before that Duncan Keith wouldn't come back, and then he got the chance to sign with the Oilers because he sees a fit. No, maybe this was one of the reasons.
I mean, I think the fact that the team is a contender and it's the team that he grew up cheering for as a kid, those are important things. But really, at this point in his career, I think he's looking for the best opportunity to play. And bless you. And I'm sure that I'm sure that Kulak looked at the Oilers and said, okay, if I look around the league, where am I going to get the chance to not be held down to a bottom pairing when I believe that I can play higher in the lineup and contribute there? And in Edmonton, there was a clear-cut spot open for him to take on the left side. This also gives Broberg time to develop on the third pair and work his way up the lineup over the next several years. But when you have a team that's looking to compete right now, even though Broberg is a high draft pick and I have high hopes for him in his career, they needed to insulate him and make sure that he wasn't going to be thrust in a position he wasn't ready for. So that's why I think it's so important that they were able to bring back Kulak and have him on the second pairing. And maybe if a few years down the road, those two swap and Broberg ends up taking that spot. But for right now, Kulak is a guy that they needed to rely on in that spot.
Yeah. Absolutely, and I truly believe he's gonna have a great season. He's gonna prove a lot of people that he's capable of playing on top four.
For sure.
Yeah, and they can leave Broberg, as I said, in the third line with some time to develop, and it was really good. I have to agree with you both. I think Evander Kane was a great signing. Jack Campbell, we really need a goalie with only Skinner, but Brett Kulak was the best signing of the Oilers in this offseason. He's really a must, like Diego said.
Okay, let's talk about Matthias Janmark now, who signed a 1-year contract with the Oilers worth $1.25 million a few days into free agency. I see this as a cheap, low-risk depth signing for the Oilers. Where do you see Janmark fitting into the lineup? Diego, go ahead.
Oh, that it was a surprise for me. He seems to be like a bottom player guy, and he has some interesting stats. I think his highest was playing NHL. It was like 25 points, in one season with Vegas. I'm sorry, actually it was 34 points. It's a bottom player, average. So I think he seems to be a very reliable player. He might surprise a lot of people, and I don't know much what to say about him. Actually, it's a low risk. You know, maybe he might pay off, uh, but he has some interesting stats. He got 56. Actually, how many? 36 points in one season playing in a Swedish hockey league. And then he got 34 points, 25 points, 24, 21 points. Well, we'll see. I think he has a fit on the fourth line. He could be our center, maybe. So I don't know if Derek Ryan would be the perfect fit on center. I think he played better on the wings. So maybe Mark could be this fourth line center, and he could help us to bring more defense. That's all I know about him. Actually, I don't know much, but he's a low risk signing, and we'll see. We'll see what happens.
And Gabriel, what do you think about Janmark?
I really think he will be a bottom six, of course. I think the fourth line as well. He can compete for the position with Tyler Benson. I think it's a one that will be nearby with the left wing of the fourth line. Even with Derek Ryan in the center, I know he can play center, and with Greg McKegg as well, which is another deal signing from the Oilers, I think.
Yeah.
But as I said, it's a really low. It's not a high risk bet. It's just 1 year, 1.25, I think, with him. Last season he had 25 points. It was such a kind of a good number with fourth line could do with 9 goals, I think, in 67 games. But I don't know. He can play. He has his spot. And think, but we can see him in the fourth line. We can see how it goes, because it's a low risk bet. And of course I wouldn't complain if he scored another hat trick in a game 7 like he did with the Vegas Golden Knights against the Wild in the last year. It would be really good. It would be really unexpected as well as it was at the time. But I don't know. It's a good signing. I think it's a good signing. It can be a great one, but if it isn't, it's not a big problem for the administration for the team.
Right. Janmark probably has enough skill to bolster the Oilers' fourth line a bit and provide some depth for the top 9 if there's an injury. Mm-hmm. And although he only had 9 goals last season, he has had seasons of 19 and 15 goals in the past. So there might be a little bit of offense there, and he can play center or wing, although I have heard that he played more wing last season in Vegas. So I could still see Derek Ryan being the fourth line center, but it's nice to have more guys who can play down the middle if you have to. The Oilers already have I think 5 centers on the roster, including Ryan McLeod, who switches back and forth. So does Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. So adding another guy in there just gives them a little extra depth in case of injuries. And he uses his speed to get on the forecheck and turn pucks over. That's probably his best skill. And Janmark is also a player that Holland drafted with the Red Wings back in 2013. So he knows the player and what to expect from him. I think this signing likely pushes Devon Shore out of the lineup and also makes Warren Fogle expendable, because Janmark has a similar skill set and his cap hit is less than half of Fogle's. Plus, the Oilers still need to trade a contract before the season because they're currently over the cap limit until Oscar Klefbom and Mike Smith go on LTIR. So I think that there's a chance that this allows them to make that trade. Hopefully they could do something like a Fogle trade for a draft pick just to clear the money. But I don't see him having, Janmark that is, I don't see him having a major impact on the team. But I think he's probably a more skilled fourth liner than they're accustomed to having the last few years. So that's an upgrade at least.
It is, and it's like Gabriel said, if he produces some offense and he scores in a very important playoff game, I will never complain about him. I truly hope he succeeds in the Oilers system, actually, and he scores at least 10 goals to 15 goals. That would be amazing, and if the Oilers play 11-7, with 7 defensemen, I truly think he has a great chance of having some shifts with Connor, and these kind of shifts could lead to a goal, so he could take a chance, as Jay Woodcroft likes to play that system a lot, 11-7. So I believe Janmark could be a great surprise. Not an X factor, but he will probably score a few goals, and this is going to be good.
For sure. And I think that's one thing that will be interesting to see this coming season. If Jay Woodcroft goes back to the 11-7 lineup, or if he does the more traditional 12-6, I think that because they are going to have some young defensemen like Niemelainen and Samorukov who are going to be looking for playing time, especially Samorukov, who can't be sent down to the minors anymore because he'll have to clear waivers. I think there are going to be nights where they will dress 7 defensemen, but there's enough forwards that I wouldn't be surprised if 12-6 is the more regular lineup that he goes with, and maybe they'll go 11-7 on special nights when they think that it benefits them against the opponent that they're going up against. But one player who will be sticking around and not going out to make room for cap relief is Jesse Puljujarvi, who signed a 1-year, $3 million contract with the Oilers on July 26th. Puljujarvi received a fairly decent raise after making just over $1.1 million in each of the past 2 seasons. And despite reports that Puljujarvi and the Oilers were headed towards a split this offseason, his future with the team seems more secure with training camp just a few weeks away. Were you guys surprised to see Puljujarvi re-sign with the Oilers? And do you think that a trade could still be coming? Gabriel, what's your take on it?
Well, if I had to bet in the beginning of the season, I really thought Puljujarvi would leave Edmonton. He already asked for a trade in 2019, I think. He spent the year in Finland, but he was a really high draft pick. He still can perform. I really think if he had left Edmonton, he would perform great in any other team that he would end up. But I really think we can have Puljujarvi playing in the second line or even in the third one. I don't think we will see him playing in the first line with McDavid and Evander Kane a lot as we were used to see in the last season. And he can perform. It's I want to say a really good example to compare is Valeri Nichushkin from the Avalanche, that he wasn't performing so great. He spent some time in Europe, then he come back, and we already know, unfortunately, how Nichushkin can perform great, especially in the playoffs. But maybe some new trade can happen, but I think he will stay right now. This year that he signed with the Edmonton Oilers, as the season is already approaching or really near it, and I really think he can play great in even the top 6 lines, or even in the top 9 he can perform, but in the top 6, even in the second line, he can still perform. And as I said with other players, he right now is Jay Woodcroft, who is in charge of the team, and Jay Woodcroft really knows how to evolve a player, how to start a player and making him play the best that he can on ice.
Definitely. And, you mentioned Nichushkin there. He's a good comparable because he was another high draft pick who struggled out of the gate, had to go back to Europe for a year. And then when he came back to the NHL, had a much greater impact. And we've seen that with Jesse Puljujarvi as well. He went back to Finland for the one season. Then he rescinded his trade request, formed a new relationship with Ken Holland and Dave Tippett in 2019. These were coaches and a manager that he didn't have the last time that he was with the organization. So they kind of started with a clean slate. And now we're 2 years in to this second run with the team. And I think things have gone a lot better for him. But there's still room to grow for the player. Diego, how do you see the Puljujarvi situation playing out?
I wasn't expecting him to come back, to be honest, But I'm glad he returned because I'm a huge Jesse Puljujarvi fan. And I really like him. I truly hope he's a great kid. He's always smiling, He has the tools, he has the size to play. And if he wants, he can be a really great player, It's all up on him. But of course, he's also very young, so he has a lot of things to learn. It's like Gabriel said, that example with Nichushkin. I don't know how to say that name.
Nichushkin.
Guys.
I practiced before. If you want to become, I practiced.
Yeah, for us, it's kind of hard. I'm sorry, but I can say that Eric and Gabriel, he's a tremendous player. He has such a great potential, and I'm not sure if he's going to start this season Oilers colors because we have heard some rumors about other players, and he might be very valuable to another team and go on the other way around. So I think this deal could be a prove me deal, like prove me in. Maybe this could be a deal to entice other teams around the league and see, we can take that player in return, and if he has a great cap hit, why not to take a chance on him, He could be trade bait still. That's not what I want. That's not what I truly expect to happen, but I think Jesse is a great player, and he's been developing nicely, since he came back from Finland. He could be really useful for this season, much more than Yamamoto, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think that Puljujarvi is a very underrated player, especially outside of Edmonton. And that's mostly because he's never had more than 36 points in a single season, which is lower than you would expect from a former fourth overall pick and a player who has spent a lot of the time on McDavid's wing. However, he was on pace for 45 points before his injury last year. So I could see him having a breakout season with 50 to 55 points in the next year or two. But even on the nights when Puljujarvi doesn't get his name on the score sheet, he makes a positive impact at both ends of the ice. I mean, he shows a willingness to go to the net for scoring opportunities and to dig pucks out of the corners for his line mates. He's also an excellent defensive winger, which I don't think gets recognized enough. And even though I only have a basic level understanding of advanced analytics, I know that the Oilers create more chances and prevent more chances against when he's on the ice. So Puljujarvi is a player that I hope they hold on to because he could be a valuable piece on a championship team.
Absolutely. And he's like you said, he's got some votes, some Selke votes. So other people around the league really value his defensive plays and skills. So I don't know. I don't understand why the Oilers should trade or maybe get rid of a player who has such a enormous potential to be really useful in this lineup, especially when it comes about defense, which has been one problem that the Oilers have had for years. So every player that plays defense, despite no matter actually the position, should be valued by the organization, I would say.
Yeah, I agree 100% with Diego, and I really think if the Oilers end up trading Puljujärvi like in this season just to for cat hit purpose or for any other thing, I think the Oilers will regret a lot trading such a good player as Puljujärvi.
Yeah, I wouldn't want him to go unless it was a part of a bigger deal to get an impact player who could make a significant difference right away. But I would tend to want to hold on to him because it's like we talked about with Nichushkin earlier. You never know what the player is going to look like a few years down the line. And typically players who are bigger take a little longer to grow into their body. And he might be an example of another late bloomer who just takes off offensively in his mid to late 20s. So he's shown in the past he can have stretches of really strong play. It's just a matter of can he carry it over the course of a full season without any extended slumps.
Yeah, like Diego said, it's like a proof mid-season. I really think he can perform, and he's only 24 years old. I think he still has his greatest years yet to come, even in Edmonton or in the sport as well as a whole.
Definitely. And a week after getting Puljujärvi under contract, the Oilers avoided arbitration with Kailer Yamamoto by signing him to a 2-year contract worth $6.2 million. Did you guys think the contract would be longer? And who do you think Yamamoto should play on a line with this season? Diego, you can go first.
I think Yamamoto is still a very useful top 6 player. He meshed really well with Werner Kane and McDavid on the first line. So if there is no other winger coming, we should keep this line. They were very powerful and they could make a lot of damage, when they're together. So this would leave Draisaitl playing with Zach Hyman and maybe Puljujärvi, which in my opinion, I think it's a great top 6. But I don't know, maybe depending on the possible rumors and trades we're going to talk about, he could be a third line winger, and we like his tenacity. We like how small he is, but he's never afraid of anyone. It's like an angry dog.
The honey badger.
Yamamoto. Yes, honey badger. And I love him. But I wasn't expecting the deal to be so short. Maybe because there will be some other players on the pipeline and the Oilers need to sign some players like Bouchard, which in my opinion is a priority. The Oilers should think about, signing him as long as possible. So maybe that deal will open up spaces in the future for Holloway to play on top 6 or maybe Xavier Bourgault. And other players like Petrov, even Savoy, they could take the chance and maybe replace Yamamoto in a few years. I don't think he's going to be here long term, and I think he has some value. Maybe in a few years he will be traded to open up some cap space, and then leave a spot open for another player to embrace it, let's say.
Yeah, and just to touch on that for a second, the Oilers have been collecting a bunch of skilled wingers through the draft over the last few years, and they're not all going to make it to the NHL, but you're hoping that one or two of them hit and become regulars in the lineup for you. And having that many skilled options coming through the pipeline, not only does it give you cheap but talented players who are going to be working their way onto your lineup, it forces Yamamoto and Puljujärvi, and even on the other wing, guys like Holloway, who's making his way up, and Zach Hyman, these guys to raise their game and not let someone steal their spot, because they know that there's this next wave of talent coming, and if you start to slip, then someone who is going to come up from the minors is going to be looking for your job. So I would say that competition is a good thing. It breeds success, and if Yamamoto ends up keeping that job, then that's great. And perhaps that someone will come in and try and take his job in a year or two. But for right now, I think that he is one of the 6 most skilled forwards on the team, and he deserves to be a regular in the top 6. Gabriel, where would you play Yamamoto?
I really think he can play top 6, as he already proved in the past years. But I wouldn't complain like seeing him in the third line, for example. He's still really young, as Puljujarvi is, but I really think Puljujarvi is a priority compared to Yamamoto, and that's the good thing of competition. And we have a lot of great prospects in the Condors to put it in a way. But I don't know if Yamamoto can perform in the third line. It would be great. I think it's a shorter contract that we all expected, I think, and I really think Yamamoto can leave Edmonton after this contract. But even in the second line or even in the third, I think Yamamoto can play great and can as any other player can try to have the best season of his career so far.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Yamamoto's time in the NHL. For the first 3 years, he was playing these short stints with the team, couldn't really get himself established. He was sent back to junior because they rushed him there too soon. He had that great 27-game run in 2019-20 where he was almost at a point per game. And then last year was a little bit of a down year. This year we were hoping for more, and he got off to a tough start. He only had 2 goals in the first 13 games, and then there was a stretch in December where he went 7 straight games without a shot on goal. But he really turned it around in the second half of the season and finished with 20 goals and 41 points, which were both career highs for him. And he turns 24 next month, so we'll have a pretty good idea of what his offensive ceiling is over the next 2 years. I would have tried to sign him for longer than that, though, because I think he does have 60-point potential. And the thing is, he's not a regular on the top power play unit, though, so he's going to have to put up most of his offense at even strength. But that said, he has the benefit of playing with one of the 2 best centers in the world on any given night. And Yamamoto works really well with Draisaitl. Like I said, when we go back to that 2019-20 season, that line of Draisaitl, Nugent Hopkins, and Yamamoto was not just the Oilers' best line, but it was arguably the best line in the NHL for a period of probably 2 months. But I think that he also played some of the best hockey of his career this past March when he was on the top line with McDavid and Kane. So that's where I would start him. But I also expect Zach Hyman is going to have an opportunity to play on McDavid's right side as well. So once again, there's going to be competition for that spot, but I just think that's where I would start him as first line right wing, playing with Connor McDavid at center and Evander Kane at left wing.
No, he can perform. We already know, but no, I read a really good article from Zach Lang. It was a writer from the Oilers Station, and he was saying like how Draisaitl were playing better in the last games without Yamamoto by his side, and I don't know if we put him in a third line, for example, I think he would give him a really, really strong third line. And for me, I really agree he can play in the first line with McDavid and Kane. He can perform pretty well. He have 2 great players right beside him. But I would give that spot to Zach Hyman, for example. I really think Zach Hyman can, right now at the beginning, before the season starts, I think Zach Hyman can fill the spot properly. But the competition is always great. Kyle Yamamoto will have to deliver his best hockey in every game, for example. And I really think he can perform. He can be a 60 points per season, as you said. He has the potential to do it, and we have to properly explore it.
Yeah, agreed. All right, we're going to talk about Edmonton's only remaining unsigned top 9 player now, and that's Ryan McLeod. But although he hasn't signed a deal yet, I fully expect the Oilers will get something done with him in the next few weeks. I think he had a solid rookie season, but he hasn't taken off offensively yet. He had 21 points last year, which is decent for a guy breaking in, playing in the bottom six. What are your thoughts on McLeod, Gabriel?
I really think McLeod stays in Edmonton as he's supposed to. I think he will be like in a pretty good contract, like 1 million, 1.25, something like that. And as we said about Puljujärvi and Yamamoto, he's still younger than these two. He still has yet a lot to prove, only 22 years old. But he had a good rookie season. He has yet to perform offensively. He didn't have the instant impact. But I think he can be the center that we need. Of course, he can compare with McDavid and Draisaitl and even Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, but he can give you strength from the fourth line and give competition to Derek Ryan, for example, and even Matthias Janmark and the other ones. But I think he will be a bottom six, of course, but he can perform as well. He can be a great bet. And as I already said, with Jay Woodcraft, who knows him since the Bakersfield Condors, he knows how to make this player evolve at his maximum, I think.
And Diego, how do you see this player?
McLeod, he has become one of my favorite players because of his smile,
He's got the classic hockey smile.
Yes, exactly. His smile is contagious. And besides that, of course, it's like Gabriel said, he's an excellent player. He could play in different positions, like you guys mentioned, at center, on the wing. I have all the time in the world for him to be our third line center. I think he could be very reliable at that position. And this could make Nuge be a second line left wing. He could play. He has good chemistry with Draisaitl. So I honestly expect him to come back, to return. Bob Stauffer said that he fully expects the Oilers to bring him back. So I'm not going to count against that. So I truly believe McLeod is gonna be a huge piece moving forward to this core. He seems to have a great relationship with the players, and he plays really well under Jay Woodcroft's system. And he played a lot of time on penalty kill as well. And who would expect that he would thrive, at that position, as a penalty killer? He's fast. He has a lot of great skills, and he skates really well. So it's very nice to see him playing during the power play time. He has some time on power play on the second unit, and he moves the puck really well. He skates around the ice really well, and he opens up some spaces so the Oilers can score in 2 power play units. And he's a great, I would say he's a great player, but a great weapon to have, and he can play up and down the lineup. I truly think McLeod is going to be with us for such a long time, and he's going to be a good player, a great addition for us. Yeah, so I don't count him out of the Oilers. This would be like heartbreaking if it ever happens.
Well, I mean, he's only 22 years old. I don't think they would ever consider letting him go. And the other thing is, like, when you look at how their success rate has been with second round picks over the last decade plus, there have been very few that have turned into anything at the NHL level. So for the Oilers to get a guy at 40th overall who has come in and made a meaningful contribution to the lineup, that's huge, because normally they've either traded away or had second round picks taken from them from the league for various reasons, like the Milan Lucic trade, or the signing Todd McClellan and having to give up a pick even though he mutually parted ways with the Sharks. So there's been lots of times where the Oilers haven't had a second round pick, but the ones that they have used, there have been a bunch of misses. So to get a player who has actually come in and not just made the team, but is being a regular contributor and a guy who has the versatility, sort of like you mentioned, Diego, who can play center or the wing. I think that we could see Nugent Hopkins and McLeod alternating spots from time to time this year, where one of them will be on second line left wing, the other one will be at third line center, and then we'll see where that all plays out, because Holloway could work his way up the lineup sooner than later too. But it's just, it's nice to have a draft pick who wasn't in the top 10 work out for this team. And McLeod is just scratching the surface, I think, on the type of player he could be.
Oh, yeah, it's really good to see McLeod perform. I really think he has the potential to excel this year. As you already said, with a lot of other players, most of all, he can have his best season. He can have a best season compared to his rookie one, and he can make the team all the team better. If he was a center on the third line, he can push Nugent Hopkins to the second one with Draisaitl, and the whole team gets better. Yeah. With Warren Fogle, it's almost like everybody is saying that he's leaving the team, and with Dylan Holloway coming, he can perform with Dylan.
And I don't think sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say that it's hard to picture that in the beginning, but I really think in those days that he can alternate with Nugent Hopkins in the near future. I think not in game one, for example. They can have some time, and they can make all the team really way better.
Right. And we are going to see McLeod improve offensively, but I don't think he's ever going to be a big scorer at the NHL level. If he can give the Oilers 15 goals a year when he's in his prime, that will be good offense from him, because they have enough high-end talent that he likely isn't going to be a regular in the top six. I mean, like we said, there could be times where he's switching with Nugent Hopkins and getting some time with Draisaitl at second line left wing. But eventually, when guys like Carter Savoy come around, when Dylan Holloway develops into his prime, those guys are going to probably be holding down those positions on the wing a little more, and it'll make it tougher for McLeod to take a spot in the top six. But I think they envision him as their third line center long term. And if he can be the third line center who can go up against the other team's top attackers and can kill penalties and chip in a little bit of offense here and use his speed to move the puck up ice, that will make him an important player for this team.
Yeah, absolutely. And he proved he can skate really well around the ice. He just need to improve his finishing, and I think he's going to be a massive addition to this group. You know, if he scores more goals, like you said.
Definitely. All right, let's finish up tonight by talking about a couple rumored players who could be coming to Edmonton. We'll start with an obvious one that seems more likely, and that's Sam Gagner. I mean, he's been a fan favorite in Edmonton for many years, and he's closing in on 1,000 games in the NHL, just 33 away. It would be so great to see him hit that milestone in an Oilers uniform. And he kind of got fans in oil country a little excited last week when he posted a picture on his Instagram of an Oilers shirt draped over his exercise bike. So I just want to ask you guys, would you have any interest in bringing back Sam Gagner for a third tour of duty?
I don't know. For me, it would be great to see Sam Gagner playing. He can be the center of the bottom six that we are all looking for, discussing with McLeod and Derek Ryan, for example. We know that he can bring a lot of experience to the new players as well. And he has, I have here, he has 542 games only with the Oilers. He is already almost with the 1,000, as you said. but it would be great. It would be great. It would be a cheap contract, I think. And he had a pretty good last year. He had 13 goals and 31 points in any 81 games played with the Red Wings. He proved himself that he can still perform, and I think he really wants to come back and have his shot with a really good Edmonton Oilers team, a team that can fight until late in the playoffs.
And how about you, Diego? Would you be interested in bringing back Sam Gagner?
Absolutely, yeah. So why not you see one of the fan favorites in oil country? I would love to see him. Like Gabriel said, he could be a very useful bottom six center, and he could, he could occupy that position, fill in that position at center, and we could have a very solid line, 31 points last season. That's really good, for a player that has been playing bottom 6 minutes. I think he performed really well, and he really loves Edmonton. So his wife is from Edmonton.
Right.
He has strong family roots in that city. So why not to finish there with oil country? Finish his career in Edmonton. Complete 1,000 games, right? It's 1,000 games?
Yeah, he's just 33 games away from 1,000.
33 games away, so that would be amazing. And I'm pretty sure all the Oilers fans, at least the majority of them, would be very happy to see that happen in Oilers colors. I have all the time in the world for Sam Gagner. I saw some pictures of him like hugging other Oilers players like Draisaitl and McDavid. Is that right?
Yes, there was a picture. He was hanging out in Ontario at a lake with McDavid and Draisaitl and one other friend of theirs.
Maybe they had some conversations, right, about him coming back. One can only hope. That's what I hope. I really like Sam Gagner, and despite he is currently playing for the Red Wings, I still love him, and I have all the time for him. So it would be great to see him back.
Yeah, the environment in the locker room of the team already seems to be really great with everybody, and Sam Gagner would just add to that, would just bring positive things, bring experience. I like, of course, Sam Gagner. I like him because my first memory as an Oilers fan, as a hockey fan, it was the game that he scored 8 points against the Chicago Blackhawks in 2012. And it would be really, really great to see the team that he got drafted, he come back, and he can still perform. We see wouldn't just to be like some ceremonial stuff. No, he can still perform. He can play great in the bottom 6. He can be a really good center, and he can make the team better on ice and off ice as well.
And he could lift the cup with us here.
Yeah, and see, that's the other thing. I mean, I've been a fan of Sam Gagner since the day he was drafted in 2007. We're both born in 1989, so we have that connection too. I've always loved his shootout moves right from the start when he was 18. If you go back and watch some of his highlights on YouTube, some of the moves he pulled off were just incredible. He might never have developed into the top offensive star that he was projected to be when they picked him 6th overall, but he's had a very solid NHL career. It's like we've mentioned, he's closing in on 1,000 games. You don't hang around that long if you're not a good player. And there's nowhere that would be more fitting for him to hit that 1,000th game mark than in Edmonton. I hope that he gets it no matter where it happens, but it would just be more special if he did it here. And like you said, adding to the culture of the dressing room, teaching some of the new guys what it means to be an Oiler, and also, aside from being closing in on 1,000 regular season games, Gagne has only ever played in 11 playoff games. He's almost missed the playoffs every year of his career except for 2, I believe, with Columbus and Philadelphia. He made it in 2015 and 2016, I think. So this is a guy who has experienced even more losing than Nugent Hopkins, who we were talking about earlier. And to see him get to finally, after 15 years, it'll be 16 by the time next year's playoffs roll around, getting to play a playoff game with the Oilers and having the chance to win a Stanley Cup. That would be so special to see. I never got to see Ryan Smith win a cup with the Oilers. That was something I was always disappointed about. But if Gagne got to lift one, it would be close to as special as that. And I just hope that he finds a job somewhere. But if the Oilers were able to work it out and bring him back, even as a 13th forward, it's something I would be interested in.
Yeah, and can you imagine how poetic this would be? You know,
yeah,
for a player coming back to the team that drafted him and win a cup. Oh yeah, boy,
he loves the Oilers. He always has, and it would just, it seems right that this is where he would finish his career, in the same place where he started it. And also a good friend of Gagne, who he played junior hockey with in the London Knights organization, could also potentially be heading to Edmonton. We've heard this name rumored out there for a while, and that's Patrick Kane. Now, this would be a much harder deal to pull off because there would have to be salary retention from the Blackhawks. The Oilers would have to send a huge package to bring him in. Kane would have to first agree to Edmonton, and then even if he came here, it would probably only be for 1 year because he's going to re-sign in the United States most likely next summer. I don't know what it's going to take to get Kane. Like we said, it's going to take a lot. But if the Oilers were able to put a package together that the Blackhawks were interested in and make the money work, should they pursue Patrick Kane in the here and now, or would you wait until the trade deadline? Diego, why don't you go?
All right. Okay. I absolutely want Patrick Kane to play for the Oilers. No, if having one Kane, which is a good player, on your team is good, imagine 2, you know? Can you imagine a line of Evander Kane, McDavid, and Patrick Kane?
Yeah.
I can imagine. That would be amazing, fantastic. I don't think we would lose games, actually.
How about a line of McDavid, Draisaitl, and Kane? It would be, unless I'm mistaken, it would be the only line in NHL history with 3 scoring champions and 3 MVPs on it.
Exactly. Can you imagine 3 Hart trophies and Art Ross winners?
You could call it the Hart line.
Yeah, the Hart line. Oh my gosh. It is so nice to imagine that. And I have all the time for Patrick Kane. I'm sorry I have said this a lot of times during this podcast that I have time for a lot of players, but Patrick Kane, it's like a must to this team. Some people claim that the Oilers should have, they should trade for a defenseman. I partially agree with that. I can stick to my opinion that Kulak will hold that position, and I'm totally fine with that. But Patrick Kane, and not in my wildest dreams I would ever imagine Patrick Kane coming to the Oilers. And there is a possibility. Some insiders, they have mentioned the Oilers are one of the teams interested in Patrick Kane, and he might see a great opportunity to win another cup. You know, he's a Hall of Fame player already, so why not having a 4th Stanley Cup, on his resume? I think he's strongly considering the Edmonton Oilers, and maybe we are the front runner. I don't think the Leafs will pull that off. They're one of the teams interested.
Yeah.
Maybe because of his family roots. I think the biggest opponent to the Oilers in this possible trade would be the New York Rangers, because he's from Buffalo. Buffalo is quite close.
Yeah.
So his family would follow, and he's an American player as well.
I think for 1 year though, if he had to come to Edmonton, it wouldn't be the end of the world for him. I mean, like I said, he's going to get to play with Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. That's also a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to play with both of those guys in his prime. And if he wants to re-sign in the United States after, I completely get that he would want to go back closer to home. Maybe he even would sign in Buffalo. But if he wants to go for another cup, and I can't imagine that he'll want to stay in Chicago, even though he's created a great legacy there over the past 15 years. I mean, first overall pick, Stanley Cup winning goal, 3 cups, Conn Smythe Trophy, Art Ross Trophy, Hart Trophy. I mean, he's done it all there. Like you said, he's going to the Hall of Fame, Olympic silver medal. But to finally have a chance to compete again for a cup after several years on a pretty poor Blackhawks team, and now they're going into a full rebuild, I think he would relish that opportunity. And yes, there are other teams in the league who might desire him more or need a skilled player more. He'd be almost a luxury to have for the Oilers. You could argue that, like you said, having a better defenseman, trying to upgrade your blue line would be a more prudent move than bringing in Patrick Kane. But I still think that when you have a chance to bring in an elite offensive player, you do what you can to make it happen. I would definitely go for him if they could make it work. Gabriel, are you all in on Patrick Kane as well?
No, of course. Just thinking about the line with the Evander Kane, Patrick Kane, and Connor McDavid, my eye starts to shine, I think. With Draisaitl, McDavid, and Patrick Kane, it's like a video game line that you put on the real life. But I know it's hard. Chicago has to retain some salary. Mm-hmm. I think his salary isn't that big, but his cap hit is almost 10. Is the cap is 10 million? I think 10.5.
10.5, yeah.
Really, really. But in the last season, in this complicated Chicago team, he posted 92 points in 7 and 8 games. It's like he's amazing. He's just amazing. Playing with the Chicago Blackhawks that you already saw. Imagine him playing with McDavid and Draisaitl and this offensive part of the Edmonton, which is already one of the greatest of the league, and will be one of the greatest of all time ever, I think, with McDavid and Draisaitl. Adding Patrick Kane would be really great. Just for 1 year, it's something that can make some fans think, but can make him come to Edmonton. And as you said, probably he wouldn't stay longer than that. And the time to win is now. McDavid is at his peak. Draisaitl is at his peak. We have Evander Kane. We have Zach Hyman playing great. Nugent Hopkins. We have a really good coach as Jay Woodcroft. The time to win is really now. It's hard. It's really hard. But I don't know. He spent his whole career in Chicago, and he can do what Duncan Keith, for example, did.
I was going to say, maybe Duncan Keith can tell him how fun it was playing in Edmonton and kind of convince his buddy to come there. And also, as I mentioned, Sam Gagner is a friend of Patrick Kane's as well. So there could be a little bit of a London Knights reuniting in Edmonton. So we'll have to see what happens.
Yeah, of course. Like Keith really seems to enjoy the time he was in playing for the Oilers, and he really can make Patrick Kane. And if he comes, it will be a hell of a lineup, a lineup that I don't know, some really, really long years that the Edmonton Oilers don't see. And the league itself, the NHL as a whole, don't see a lineup like that in the offensive part.
Can you imagine the power play?
Oh boy, don't even
because
say that.
I mean, Evander Kane, who we talked about, might score 40 goals this year. He might not even be a lock to play on the first unit. Like you look at the obvious ones. I think Bouchard steps up and takes Tyson Barrie's spot on defense this year. It's time to have that slap shot on the power play. There's the obvious ones: McDavid, Draisaitl, they're locks on there. Now, if you add Patrick Kane, that's your fourth forward. So you're locked up basically right there. And Zach Hyman, he's the other guy who you're probably going to have in front of the net. That power play, I could see it breaking the NHL all-time record for best power play. I believe it's I think it's the 1977-78 Montreal Canadiens, who were something like 31.7% on the power play. I'm not kidding. I think that with Patrick Kane, the Oilers' power play would go 35% or better next season. That's how potent it would be.
Yeah, and that's why it's so exciting to talk about Patrick Kane, because he could be one of the other players to decide a game. You know, if you have McDavid and he's shut down, you have Draisaitl. If you don't have Draisaitl, you have Patrick Kane. If you don't have Patrick Kane, you have Zach Hyman, you have Evander Kane, you have Nuge. You have lots of possibilities. Imagine on the power play. You know, I think if Kane plays for the Oilers, he will replace Nuge's position. Maybe Nuge will be playing on power play second unit with Evander Kane or maybe Zach Hyman. That's such a strong power play.
They might not get to the second unit very often, considering how many goals that first unit's going to score. But
exactly.
I mean, just when you think about the incredible passing that you would see between those groups, because everyone there can just put the puck right on the tape. It would be phenomenal to see that group work the puck around. And I think that we might actually see Patrick Kane being a better fit with Leon Draisaitl, because Kane is a very similar player to McDavid. So having a guy like that on Draisaitl's wing and allowing McDavid to, stay with, let's say, Kane and like Evander Kane and Zach Hyman, you could have a second unit then of possibly Nugent Hopkins, Draisaitl, and Patrick Kane, or we'll see if someone else works their way up into that left spot. But I'm just picturing all the different combinations we could have, and it would just be such a skilled group. Certainly the most talented group the Oilers would have had since the 1980s.
No, for sure. And when I said I was going back thinking about another offensive power with the Edmonton Oilers, and I could only go back to the 80s, to the Oilers from the 80s, and we already know how it ended up pretty well for the team. But Kane would make the whole team better, not only the power play. He would put Hyman in the second line. He would put Nuge in the second and third line. The whole team would get really, really better. And as I said, it would be only 1 year, probably. It's hard. It's not easy, but it's possible. It's not near from impossible. And the time from win is now. Finally, it's now from the Edmonton Oilers, and you have to be 100% sure that Patrick Kane could make the Oilers go even further. Without Kane, for example, without Patrick Kane, and with Draisaitl only with one leg, the Edmonton Oilers got where they got. Imagine with both of them healthy and playing as they already know how to play.
I mean, that's a big thing too. If they can have all their top players at full health next year in the playoffs, that will make such a difference. I still think the Avalanche would have beat the Oilers even if Draisaitl and Nurse were healthy, but it would have been probably a closer series. I could have seen the Oilers winning maybe 2 games. And the team, I still believe, is good enough to get back to the conference final again next year. But what happens when you run into the Avs again? You have to find a way to beat them this time. And having a player like Patrick Kane in the fold definitely increases your chances of getting by the Avs and making it to the Stanley Cup final.
100%. I totally agree. And in my opinion, if there is a chance to get Patrick Kane, you should go for it, Like Gabriel said, the time is now. Do whatever you can, but bring Patrick Kane. And I must add, Chicago owes us a favor.
Yeah.
No? So we took full cap hit of Duncan Keith. So maybe
I don't
now
think they're
it's
going to
time.
see it that way, though.
Yes, I'm
it's a
just
new.
joking.
I know, but it's a new management group in there, and with all the stuff that's gone on with the Blackhawks organization, I just maybe Patrick Kane wants a fresh start with a new organization. Who knows? But anyway, guys, that's something that we're going to have to keep an eye on this winter. Maybe it'll happen at the trade deadline. I'd love to have Kane in Edmonton from the start of the season, but if it does happen, I think it's more likely a move that we see in late February, right before the trade deadline.
Yeah. Well, let's see. There is a chance. If there is a chance, there's a way.
Sure.
I love your positivity, man. All right.
Gotta be positive as always.
Definitely. Okay. Where can people follow you on Twitter?
If you, for me, I have the EDM Oilers BR. That's the Edmonton Oilers Brazil. I have my personal account as well with Candido, with 4 in the place of an A, 6 for in the DEDO. But if you want to say something about the Edmonton Oilers as well, it's Edmonton Oilers Brazil at EDM Oilers BR.
And in case you want to find me on Twitter, so it's at Diego PR Barros with double R. Okay, Diego PR Barros.
All right,
and
everyone.
Barros you spell with double R.
That's awesome. Okay, everybody, please go follow Gabriel and Diego. They're two of my favorite guys to talk hockey with on Twitter, and it's just great to see the hockey community, especially Oilers, growing in Brazil.
Thank you again, Eric, for this opportunity. We had a great time. I had a great time. Thanks for having us back again. And it's always a pleasure to talk to you, from Brazil.
Of course.
We hope to have other chances to talk more about the Oilers.
I definitely love to have you guys back on this season, and maybe I can even appear on your podcast, although my Portuguese isn't as good as your English. So you may have to make an exception and record an episode in English for me if that were to happen.
Absolutely. That would be such a pleasure, don't you think, Gabriel?
No, for sure. We can see how far your Portuguese go, and then we stop, and then we change to English. Even if it was like, I don't know, 50 seconds, 10 seconds, but it would be really great to see someone trying to speak doing the opposite.
I think you're giving me even more credit than I did.
No, but Eric, it's always a pleasure to be here. As I said, here in Brazil, it's so far away from the NHL, from Edmonton especially, and it's always a pleasure to find not only you but Diego as well to talk about the Oilers. You are it's really good to always be in touch with you here in the podcast or with direct messages on Twitter with some really good frequency, really often. And we are always here, and it's always a great pleasure to talk with you guys. And
well, thank you. I appreciate that. And I'm hoping one day you guys will both be back in Edmonton to see a game, and you let me know when you're going to be there, because I will come out and we'll all go to maybe a game or two together at Rogers Place.
No, for sure. It's in my plans, because I know that Diego already has been in Edmonton and Canada, but I've never been in Edmonton. I never watched a hockey game. But
you mentioned that last time.
In the first opportunity that I have, for sure I will be there. Perfect.
All right. Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
You too.
Have a great night, Eric. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All
and
right.
Let's go Oilers always.
Let's go Oilers. Yes.
So for Gabriel Candido and Diego Pontes, I'm Eric Friesen. This has been the 99 Forever podcast. We're out.